I'm replaying the entire career of Fernando Alonso, starting from the very bottom of F1 and seeing if he can repeat his past success or end up a complete failure. For Alonso's first season and the start of his career, he would join a team he once did in the past of Alpine. This would cause a little scuffle in the paddock, with Max deciding to leave F1 and have Lawson replace him. Colapinto would then join Aston Martin and Paul Aron came into RB. Now, our car in terms of development was pretty bad and would take a lot to try and impress the rest of the grid, but Alonso did a very good job for his first year. He scored regular good points and even a 4th place finish in Australia, comfortably beating his teammate of Gasly across the season. Alonso was very suited to the car's characteristics and could drag it to often where it shouldn't be. At the end of his first season, he finished 8th in the standings, with Alpine getting 6th in the Constructors. Lando won the Drivers for the year, with Ferrari just taking the Constructors. For season 2, and despite the team not developing too well at the bottom of F1, Alonso really appreciated that the team were listening to him with the car and decided to sign another contract with the team. Plus, there wasn't much talk of Alonso around the paddock as of yet, as it was only his second season in the sport and needed to perform a little bit more consistently to potentially get a top team. The main driver moves for the season saw Hamilton retire from F1 and Yuki Tsunoda replaced him at Ferrari, and the Undertaker eventually returned, of Max Verstappen taking back his seat at Red Bull after his hiatus last year. The season itself wasn't too different for Alonso. He did, however, have a great race at Monaco to score his first podium in 3rd position, but apart from that, it was similar to last year, the odd point scoring position, but the car just not being consistent enough. Alonso did question whether to stay with the team for next season due to the lack of development, but seeing there is a regulation change, he thought to stay with them one more year in any hope of the team going forward. At the end of the season, Max Verstappen won the championship, with McLaren winning the Constructors. Alonso finished in the same position of last year in 8th, with Alpine getting 6th again. It was really his sideways season. For season 3, we had hoped Alpine may do something special in the new regulations, and what did they do? Nothing, apart from maybe move up one position. So it looks like for this season it may be Alonso's final year with the team, unless they can miraculously develop the car forward. For driver moves, they weren't much, with the only major one being Stroll replacing the retiring Hulk at Sauber, with Hadjar taking his seat at Aston Martin. But for Alonso's 3rd season in F1 was his best one yet. He gathered his first pole and later win at the Monaco Grand Prix. He would also get another podium at Austria and multiple points finishes to round off his season as his best so far, plus a great wet race at Bahrain. Yeah, I said that right. Unfortunately, the team struggled to go forward once again in development, which was the only concern for Alonso's career. Despite it being the duo's best season yet, Alonso wanted a change, and after a season which boosted his stock price up, Ferrari came knocking, which Fernando soon snatched up to replace Yuki Tsunoda, who had a pretty torrid time at Maranello. For the end of season 3 saw a copy from last year, with Max winning the title, McLaren winning the Constructors, and of course Alonso and Alpine finishing in their usual 8th and 6th place. But that is it for Alonso and Alpine, which is a pretty sad ending, seeing he had a very good experience with the team and great memories, but they couldn't just bring themselves forward. But it's a new beginning for Fernando in red, so we'll have to see just how well he does for next season. But for season 4, we didn't have any driver moves apart from, of course, Alonso taking Yuki's seat at Ferrari. So I guess we'll go on car performance for the year, and like last year, Ferrari wasn't the outright fastest but near the top, so I'm expecting a pretty successful year, but I'm not too sure about a championship as of yet. Plus we have Leclerc as our teammate to contend with first. For the season itself, Alonso took a bit of time getting used to the Italian outfit and struggled in the first half of the season a lot, whilst at the same time Leclerc was having a pretty good year with a win and a podium early on. But as the season went on, Fernando got more comfortable with the car and the team to eventually score a podium at Austria, then later his first win for Ferrari at Zandvoort. He even got to a point where he was in front of Leclerc in the standings, but as the season came to an end, Alonso did just finish behind Leclerc in 4th position, whilst we secured 2nd in the Constructors behind McLaren, with Lando winning the championship for season 4. 4. In Season 5, Alonso of course stayed with Ferrari as it was his best year yet, and we managed to get Ferrari into second in the Constructors. So if we can carry that momentum forward, we can definitely try go for a championship charge. The main driver moves for the season saw Sainz retire and Colapinto replace him at Williams, with O'Sullivan joining Aston Martin and Josep Marti taking Hadjar's seat there as well. But for Season 5, it was probably the most exciting season yet. Ferrari looked very competitive at the start of the season, with Leclerc and Alonso leading the way early on. However, as the season went on, Ferrari really struggled to develop the car compared to others, a bit like Brawn in 2009, and as it got closer to the end of the season, our results started to get worse with others getting better. But Leclerc and Alonso were still leading from the success at the start of the year, and as we eventually got to Abu Dhabi, it was a super close championship and a fight between 5 drivers after Mexico, with Leclerc at the top and Alonso definitely still in with a chance. But as we got to the final race, it was a good qualifying by Alonso to get second, and as the race started and he had a decent start, but Leclerc was doing what he needed to do and scoring good points until the end. He finished third and won the Season 5's championship by 17 points over Alonso in the end. Some good news coming out of the season was that Alonso and the team won their first Constructors together, but surely for Season 6 this must be Alonso's year to win a title. And for this season there was a big shake-up in the driver market, with firstly our old teammate of Charles Leclerc deciding to retire from F1 after his championship win and do a Rosberg and just leave the sport. So his replacement would be Alex Albon, who has had a pretty good time at Williams, getting a couple of wins and a fair few podiums over the years, so he won't be an easy pushover for this season. His replacement at Williams was Hadjar. But there's also some pretty bad news and on the car front, with it losing performance for this year after the new regulations. It should have been Alonso's year to fight for a title, but if the team can't develop the car forward, it might just be another year to throw down the drain. The start of the season was actually a good surprise, with Alonso performing very well and leading for a lot of the season, but as predicted, the team couldn't keep up with development compared to others, and Alonso slowly fell backwards. Albon wasn't really pulling his weight as well in the team, which didn't help, and before the last race, Alonso was officially out of the championship for his 6th season now. Max Verstappen eventually won it at Abu Dhabi over Lando, with McLaren winning the Constructors and Ferrari finishing 4th. It was a tricky decision for Alonso if he wanted to stay with Ferrari, as it was his 3rd season with the team and no championship, but seeing his only options were Red Bull and the potential to have Max as his teammate whilst learning a new car is a bit daunting, or Mercedes, who weren't that far in front of Ferrari anyway. So Alonso didn't do what he did in real life and decided to knuckle down and sign another contract with Ferrari. Next season will surely be his last straw if he doesn't win anything. It was now Season 7 and only a couple years left of Alonso's career, and for the start of the year the car wasn't too bad and developed well over the winter to only be slightly behind the top 3, but this has to be Ferrari's year for Alonso to stay. There was only one driver move for the season, which was Ocon being replaced by Jack Crawford at Haas. As the season went on, the car was in its usual place of just being behind the podium places, as it has been for the last couple of seasons, but as time went on it came truer that Ferrari yet could develop a championship winning car for Alonso, as results got worse and worse throughout the year and being out of the championship battle pretty early. Luckily, in the last couple of races, the car was at its limitations before the new regulations next season, and Alonso managed to grab his first podium of the season at Mexico and another 4th at Abu Dhabi, whilst Lando and McLaren won another title. But that was it for Season 7, and it was Alonso's final year with Ferrari, as they have failed to achieve their goals together over the past 4 years, with only one constructor to their name. But who for Season 8 will Alonso drive for next? And here we are, the penultimate season and Alonso's final 2 years in the sport. And as you can see, Alonso decided to make the move to McLaren and partner Lando Norris, with Oscar Piastri taking Fernando's seat at Ferrari. But the news we all want for the year is, what is the car's performance, and will Alonso finally have another chance of a championship winning car? And looking at the development charts, he has seemed to have made the right move at the end of his career, as McLaren had a healthy gap at the top of the charts. It will be a hard year racing against Lando, but Alonso has the experience, plus he had Leclerc as a teammate, so surely he must go for the title this year. The season started rather good for Alonso, surprisingly, taking a win at the first race after starting lower down in qualifying, then the same at Bahrain, beating Lando both times. It was really shocking how at ease Fernando was with this car and team, and as the season went on, more of the same results happened, with Alonso just being as consistent as he can. As we eventually got to Mexico, he had a slight gap over Lando by 9 points, but he could still win the championship there if everything went to plan. The weekend started really well with Alonso getting pole, but with Lando starting 7th for the race really opened the door to potential championship. For the race, everything went according to plan for Fernando, utterly dominating the race and Lando struggling to get through, until eventually Alonso crossed the line in first and Lando in the end finished 7th, which meant Fernando Alonso was crowned a world champion for the first time in this playthrough, whilst at the same time McLaren took the constructors this weekend. It's been a long time waiting for Alonso, but he eventually did it in the penultimate season, and of course he decided to stay with McLaren for his final season next year, as it would be stupid not to, and hopefully he can try and match his 2 world titles he has in real life. But here we are for the final season of Alonso's career. He has 1 world title, but can we, for his final year, get him to match his 2? And straight away it looks like a great chance, as McLaren once again delivered a monster of a car, just miles ahead of anyone else in development, and even Sauber now being the 4th fastest car, which is mad. But the final driver transfers were Behrman replacing Stroll, who somehow has managed to have like a 15-year career in F1, with Victor Martins taking the seat at Haas. For the season itself, it was very similar to last year, with Alonso performing well and getting a couple of wins at the start of the year, whilst Lando was very similar, as well as Bortoleto doing a great job in the Sauber this year and actually being in with a shout of the championship. But as the season went on, unfortunately for Alonso, his results did start to suffer, and the breaking point in the championship while still leading was Zandvoort, when on the opening lap Alonso got into a tangle with the Mercedes and had a major high-speed crash into the barrier. Lando would eventually win the race and take a comfortable lead now in the championship. Unfortunately for Alonso, he wouldn't really recover from this setback, and by the time we got to Mexico, Lando would eventually win the championship for the final year. In the end, Alonso would finish the championship in 2nd, with McLaren winning the constructors, and an honourable mention to Bortoleto for the season, getting Sauber into 3rd. Alonso would finish off his Formula 1 career with 1 world championship, 3 constructors, 13 wins, 8 poles and 29 podiums.